Welcome to Trade Finder, a series where I take a look at the 2015-2016 NBA season standings and look at some of the more struggling teams and see what I can do to help them by doing these what-if scenario trades. Today we're taking a look at the Brooklyn Nets, who are currently the number 2 worst team in the East. Now this team is going to be very tricky when it comes to proposing trades and when it comes to trying to help this team improve now and for the future. Because, well, they got a guy named Joe Johnson, and if you don't know Joe Johnson, he's getting paid $24 million per year. This is his final year of his contract, and the Brooklyn Nets seem to be set free after this year. Once he's gone, they could finally truly start rebuilding through the draft. Oh, wait. No, they can't. The Boston Celtics have their draft pick. And looking at the Boston Celtics in the standings, the Boston Celtics may just actually sneak into the playoffs this year like they did last year. So in order to prevent the Boston Celtics from getting a top 5 pick with the Brooklyn Nets pick, the Brooklyn Nets are going to have to step it up and try to get in the middle of the pack somewhere in the Eastern Conference. So with these 3 trades, we're going to be proposing trades to get rid of Joe Johnson off this team and try to acquire a decent point guard after Jarrett Jack tore his ACL and is out for the remainder of the season. Like usual, the most realistic trade will be saved for last, but this one's kind of tricky because, well, I don't really see any team wanting Joe Johnson. Unless they're a title contending team or want to make a playoff push, it's very unlikely. But anyways, on to the first trade, which is a 3-team trade between the Phoenix Suns, the Dallas Mavericks, and the Brooklyn Nets. The Brooklyn Nets acquire Markieff Morris, Devin Harris, Raymond Felton, and Sonny Weems. The Suns acquire Joe Johnson, Andrea Bargnani, JaVale McGee, while the Dallas Mavericks acquire Tyson Chandler. So first things first, let's take a look at the new-look Brooklyn Nets rotation. Getting Markieff Morris allows him and Thaddeus Young to either switch between the 3 or 4, and it really bets that Markieff Morris will step up his play and stop complaining like he has been in Phoenix, along with getting a backup for him in Sonny Weems, along with acquiring Raymond Felton and Devin Harris, who can probably both start for this team. Although it doesn't really look as great as it should on paper, at least they get a starting point guard, a decent point guard, a lot better point guard than Shane Larkin or Donald Sloan. In the NBA, the point guard position is basically like a quarterback in the NFL. It's the most important position, really, to facilitate the basketball to his other teammates. And, well, I don't believe Shane Larkin can step up to the plate and carry this team to more than, 20 wins this season. Now, the major flaw with this first trade with the Brooklyn Nets is they get contracts back after trading away a 1-year expiring contract and $24 million of Joe Johnson. I don't personally know if the assets they're receiving are worth it. So maybe if Dallas or Phoenix throws in, a first or second round draft pick, it would probably help the Brooklyn Nets a lot more than what this trade actually did. Moving on to the Phoenix Suns' new look rotation. They get a backup to Alex Len and JaVale McGee. Although Alex Len may not be the exceptional starter for the future with the Suns team, he has been starting, I do believe, a year ago, once before they got Tyson Chandler. Andrea Bargnani, who is a very poor man's Mirza Teletovic. And to help Brandon Knight not get killed out there in the backcourt, Joe Johnson. I'm pretty sure Joe Johnson wouldn't mind going back to the Phoenix Suns, and a change of scenery would do him some good, to be totally honest. He's been in Brooklyn for I don't know how many years now, 3 to 4 years. It must have been a nightmare over there playing with those guys and playing for that organization. But the best thing about this trade for the Phoenix Suns is that they get an expiring contract, so once Eric Bledsoe gets back, they can decide whether or not to re-sign Joe Johnson for the cheap in free agency or just let him walk altogether. Along with getting rid of Tyson Chandler's terrible contract, who is now with the Dallas Mavericks. So let's take a look at that new Mavericks rotation. They only got Tyson Chandler. Point guard position got a little weaker, but at least their big man depth is nice. Small forward position kind of weak too. But hey, at least they get a familiar face back in rotation to help out Dirk. Not sure if this trade would ruin the whole Zaza Pachulia situation. He's been playing absolutely phenomenal for a backup center, now starting with the Dallas Mavericks. He's really putting up some boards, putting up a lot of good numbers. Overall, I think it was a fair enough 3-team trade. The best team that won out of this was the Phoenix Suns, getting rid of Tyson Chandler's contract and acquiring an expiring contract in Joe Johnson. But we're not here to improve the Phoenix Suns. That was last episode. We're here to improve the Brooklyn Nets. So let's get on to the second trade of this episode between the Brooklyn Nets and the Sacramento Kings. The Brooklyn Nets acquired Kosta Koufos and Darren Collison, while the Sacramento Kings acquired Thaddeus Young, Shane Larkin, and Andrea Bargnani. So taking a look at the new rotation for the Brooklyn Nets after this trade, they get a backup in Kosta Koufos for Brook Lopez, and more importantly, a starting point guard who isn't Shane Larkin to lead this team to more than 20 wins. Hopefully. Now, just like the last 3-team trade, there is a flaw with this trade with the Brooklyn Nets as well. It leaves a hole at the power forward position now. Luckily for the Brooklyn Nets, the power forward position isn't as valuable and a much needed position as the point guard position, especially when they got Brook Lopez and now Kosta Koufos. If Darren Collison really believes he can still run a team in the NBA, well, why not try with the Brooklyn Nets? I mean, just look at them. They're the Brooklyn Nets. Moving on now to the Sacramento Kings' new rotation. They acquired Thaddeus Young to start at that power forward position, which was a much lacking position for the Sacramento Kings team, along with a backup of Andrea Bargnani once again. Also, a backup in Shane Larkin because, it's just in case the whole Seth Curry thing doesn't work out for the Kings. I know they really want to experiment with Seth Curry and test out his minutes, but I think this would be the perfect trade to do so. The Kings now look like a more complete team, but unfortunately, just like the last trade, we're not doing the Sacramento Kings. We're trying to help improve the Brooklyn Nets. So let's go on to the last and final trade of this episode, which I think is the most realistic, but at the same time, I don't really think it's realistic because once again, it's revolving around Joe Johnson. This trade is between the Brooklyn Nets and the Detroit Pistons. The Brooklyn Nets acquire Brandon Jennings, Aaron Baines, and Jody Meeks, while the Pistons acquire Joe Johnson, Andrea Bargnani, and Markel Brown. So taking a look at the rotation now for the Brooklyn Nets, finally, it looks like a more complete team. A backup in Aaron Baines, a starting shooting guard who hasn't really been performing so well with the Pistons, but hey, at least he's there. Maybe he can put up some numbers like he did with the Lakers. And more importantly, a starting point guard in Brandon Jennings. Although he is coming off that Achilles tear, he's a cheaper expiring contract than Joe Johnson, and hey, if he performs well, the Brooklyn Nets can re-sign him in free agency, and they could have a starting point guard for once. So taking a look at the other side of this trade, the new look rotation for the Detroit Pistons, Andrea Bargnani, a very, 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 very poor man's Ersan Ilyasova. Joe Johnson, who is arguably taking Kentavious Caldwell-Pope's spot, who could probably switch between the shooting guard or small forward, considering if Stanley Johnson isn't ready to start yet, along with Markel Brown. Now, the reason why I think the Pistons would do this trade is because right now they're the 7th to 8th spot in the Eastern Conference. I personally do not expect them to make the playoffs, but hey, if they pull off this trade, if they could get a scorer in Joe Johnson and find a home for Brandon Jennings, this team might make some noise in the playoffs. And if the whole Joe Johnson thing doesn't work out, well, luckily for them, he's an expiring contract. But those are my 3 trades trying to help improve the Brooklyn Nets. This was a very difficult episode for me. I spent countless hours in the trade machine trying to find a home for Joe Johnson or Thaddeus Young, because those are the 2 guys I feel like they would try to move at trade deadline. And it's just, maybe the Houston Rockets or maybe a team that needs a power forward and is willing to give up a point guard. There's so many possibilities, but at the same time, there's so few possibilities to actually pull off and help this team improve. So with that said, like usual, be sure to leave in the comment section below. Did you like these trades? Did you dislike these trades? Or any personal trades that you think would help the Brooklyn Nets that I did not showcase? Along with letting me know what team I should do next. So with that said, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.